Hi, my name is Robert Frankel, and I'm an artist living in Chicago, and I'm here in New York today for an exhibition at the Montserrat Contemporary Art Gallery. I want to tell you a little bit about my artwork. I'm an abstract painter, and I like to think of myself as a storyteller. Instead of using words or movements, I tell my story on the canvas with different colors and shapes. And what I like to do really is paint an abstract landscape where my story is intuitive. It's not something that you can understand on a conscious level, but goes deeper than that. Some of my influences in my artwork are Roberto Marx, who's a Brazilian landscape architect. He has a lot of shapes and patterns, and I really like his work. A Japanese artist named Yayoi, who has a lot of bright colors and curvy lines. She's also one of my heroes. What a lot of people say about my artwork is when they look at it, it makes them happy. And one of my goals as an artist is to bring a lot of energy and life on the canvas, and the end result is when people hang this in their home or their office, I want to make people happy. And my goal as an artist really is to make people happy one painting at a time.
You are Robbie Frankel, is that right?
I'm Robbie Frankel, and I'm an artist based in Chicago.
And you're a painter.
I'm a painter. I've been painting for 30 years.
And when did you start? How did you start? Why did you start?
I've been painting all my life. I got really serious about 5 years ago when my wife entered me into a competition in New York. And much to my great surprise, I won. And that got me started on a serious basis, and I've been painting seriously ever since.
Why was it such a surprise that you won?
I was always doing art more as a hobby and a passion, and once I won the competition, I gave me some feedback that I really could take my art seriously and try to get places with it.
Okay. And what inspires you to paint in this particular style? What would you describe your style, and what inspires that style?
I paint in an abstract style, and I look at my painting, I look at myself as a storyteller, and I use the canvas to tell a story. I like to use a lot of bright fluorescent colors with a lot of passion and energy, and sometimes I balance those with some cooler blues. And what I try to do is I try to create a lot of movement and energy on the canvas. I use a lot of unusual shapes and textures and try to contrast those. And my main goal is to make the work connect with people on a real deep emotional level.
Great, great. And that's what you mean by story as opposed to a plot or a narrative?
It's a story, but it's a story that is kind of comprehended a little bit on a deeper level. It's not something you can easily put into words or understand intuitively, or you would understand intuitively. Not something you could understand logically.
Do you see the painting you're going to create before you create it?
Now, usually I put either I start my painting using color or lines, and from those I base my structure, and then the painting just kind of takes off from that.
You know, a lot of songwriters that I've been exploring talk about how what they enjoy about songwriting is what they discover as opposed to what they plan in advance. Does that apply to your work in any way?
Usually when I'm painting, if I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I'm losing. It never works. I have to take a step back and put it aside and pick it up again. I'm at my most creative and I do my best work is when I turn on my music, turn off my mind, and just let it all flow.
Has your work been influenced by other artists or painters or other kind of artists?
Two artists that have really influenced me are Isaac Agam, an Israeli artist, and he started the movement called kinetic painting, where all the paintings had a lot of movement in them, and each small part was a little painting of its own, part of the big whole. And in my paintings, it's really difficult to focus on one point of the canvas without wanting to move around. and look at what else is going on there. Again, that's part of my abstract story. Another painting where I've gotten a lot of influence from has been Roberto Marx. He was a Brazilian landscape architect and artist, and he had a lot of unusual shapes and a lot of contrast with curves and lines and geometry, and I've creatively borrowed a lot of his stuff in my work.
You mentioned that in your work, one of your goals is to connect and have people connect with it emotionally and in ways that it's difficult to describe. But what other goals might you have as an artist?
Right now, the world is really becoming a tumultuous place. People are just feeling unmoored by all the change, which is happening faster than ever. And a lot of people look at my art, tells me that it both calms them down and makes them happy. And my goal as an artist is to try to make the world a happier place, one painting at a time.
You've talked about your goals for viewers of your work and or owners of your work. What does it provide you?
Mostly it keeps me sane, but it provides me with a place to put my creative energies, and it's really a sort of meditation for me.
How long have you been? You said you started about 30 years ago. How long has it been since you concentrated on just painting?
It's been really, when I started, I've been painting on canvas, and I did a lot of wood carving and painting, most of my adult life. But 5 years ago, I got really serious with a plan to get paintings in galleries and started art shows, and I've been a very serious artist since then.
One final question, Robbie. Your paintings are so colorful and multicolor. What goes into that process of selecting your colors?
I do it all intuitively, so I really don't even think. I've discovered now when I'm looking at something, say a color of a car or a window or something, I think about now what colors went into that color, and I see the world through colors. And when I mix colors, I don't even think what I'm doing. I just grab colors from my paint kit and the different tubes I have, and they just somehow seem to mix themselves.
Well, no, they don't. It's you and your creativeness that does that. Are you always pleased with what you see, or is there a lot of trial and error that goes involved?
I always have a lot of trouble finishing a painting, because to me, one, I really enjoy making it, but I always try to find something to make better, and oftentimes my wife has to grab the painting out of my hands and say, "This is done," and that's how I know it's done.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you know when a painting is done?
Now
you mentioned your wife, but how about you?
It's really tricky, and I always don't want to fall in the trap of overdoing it, because often you can mess something up by putting too much on the painting or trying to. Again, it's a thinking part. When you're thinking about how to correct it or how to make it better, it's not working. So once in a while, something in my inner brain tells me just stop. But that's one of my challenges as an artist, is to know when to stop.
As opposed to me, I said, this is my final question a couple questions ago, and I have one more. And that question is evolving. How has your work evolved, in particular within the last 5 years when this has become more concentrated?
I started out mostly doing geometry. My background is in design and construction, and in my younger days I used to work with a lot of structural engineers and designing buildings. And I've kind of evolved from that. Again, I used to put lines on a paper and fill in the colors inside the lines. And over time, I learned how to put the colors down first and just let the painting flow from there.
Very good, very good. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts regarding your work. Any final ideas that you'd like to share?
Mostly, I really love making art, and I'm hoping the world loves my paintings as much as I love making them.